Fun convention.
I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to an order. It is 10 a.m. Welcome, everyone, people in the audience. And first order of with the agenda, I would like to take a moment and welcome a new member, Lisa.
Hi.
Welcome to the Design Council. Joining us as ex officio member from Access Advisory Board.
Yes.
Would you like to briefly tell us just what the role of that board is?
So the Access Advisory Board was created probably over 15 years ago due to a lawsuit with the city versus the Independent Living Resource Center. And they've created a board to try to make the city and county more accessible. And in our bylaws, we actually have a part there that says we were supposed to have somebody on the board here, but no one really realized that there hadn't been anybody on the board. But I think when this board became the Design Council instead of the Arts and Design Council, I think it got dropped out of your bylaws too, probably. I don't know. Who knows? So anyway, I'm here ex officio, and I guess the whole reason is just to make sure that all of Wichita, including access to our arts, is accessible to all of the community.
Well, thank you, Lisa, and welcome. And ex officio just means that, she's a non-voting member, so she'll be able to participate in the meetings and comments. Let's go ahead and get started with approval of minutes from our last meeting.
I did read through them, and I would be willing to make a motion to adopt them.
Great. Thank you. We have a second. Yeah. Chloe, a second. Any discussion? No. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, moving on to new business. Our first item in the agenda, we have the folks from Crystal Prairie Lake. We looked at this last time and we asked them to come back with a little bit more information. So they're here to present.
Hello, Tim Collins, Public Works and Utilities, here to present again 30% for phase 1 artwork for Crystal Prairie Lake Park. Before we dive into it, I did want to introduce Carrie. Carrie is here with RDG. He is part of the design team, and on board we also have Doug. Doug is part of the studio for RDG, so they'll be here to kind of talk about it. We also have a sample of the, once we get into it, the sample of the clay bar there on the wall. We can pass it around to everyone, or if you want to get it and make sure you get your hands on it, you're more than welcome to do so. So phase 1 of the project will include a 10-foot multi-use trail along Hoover Road. There'll be street crossing, which will be signalized with the pedestrian signalized crossing, a gravel parking lot with 88 parking stalls, fence between the Brooks landfill and the park. Again, that's to help make sure that people are where they're supposed to be and not where they're not supposed to be. The other part of this is that one of the main components of this is that it will be going underneath K96. That's a big component, trying to make sure that we are providing connectivity north and south of K96. And then phase 1 will be kind of the first real phase to get people into the park. So that's one of the main goals for us, is to kind of help activate the park and hopefully start spurring more projects and things like that to help it become a more usable park. And as I kind of mentioned earlier, RDG is here, and they've been working on the project for over 16 years. They've been through it from the very beginning. So we started doing the mining process all the way. Obviously, they're still here working on it. Have been a great partner in doing so. Phase 1, Design Council approved RDG to be the artist for the project. As I mentioned earlier, they have a studio within their team. They do a lot of different public arts. They do a great job of integrating art into their designs, and that was approved last year for them to be the artist on the project. And then Earlier this year, the city council approved them for design services and art services with a supplemental agreement. So they've been working on this project again over many years, but have started for this phase one here for, I guess, what is that, about 11 months now. So here's just an overview of the park. We did get this approved at city council a few weeks ago, so we do have funding all in place for this. This is just kind of our next stage in the process to continue to move forward. So city council has approved the project in general. Obviously, art will be on a separate path, so it'll come here and then we'll go to city council for approval when it approved from the Saudi. As I kind of mentioned, there is that trail going along. We do have that pedestrian crossing. You can kind of see that here. And then that city node with the public art, there is that pedestrian crossing, as I mentioned, with this neighborhood here, hoping to activate and have provide a safe crossing for this into the park. Didn't feel that going all the way up here. I imagine that this intersection will be developed here in the near future. But wanted to provide an active crossing, knowing that there's so many people that live over in this community that will want to come on over to the park through different modes of transportation. Future phases, we did have a couple of questions about future phases for the project at city council. We don't know exactly what those are, what those look like. We have a master plan, and that's what we're kind of our guiding document for right now. Should that change in the future through community engagement, that's kind of why we would be doing community engagement to make sure that we're on track continually with the master plan, seeing where everything's going. So hopefully a lot more art being added through projects over the coming years, but just kind of want to let you know that that's not set in stone. We do have, again, a master plan and line work and things like that, but we will go back and engage with the community to make sure that we're on track. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Carrie.
Thanks, Tim. As discussed a few weeks ago, the art component of the park will be kind of this gateway into the park. So it'll be on the southwest corner of the park. And then also serve as a potential kind of seating gathering area and the connection to the neighborhood on the west side of Hoover Road. So kind of updating today based on comments that we received at the last art council meeting. We're looking at making the west, kind of the western mounds. Originally, we had those mounted up to like 5 or 6 feet high on that west side. We're actually going to depress those now. So the whole idea of the art concept is kind of land art and carving out of the earth, just as the extraction of kind of the salmon gravel out of the lake area. So telling that story of kind of carving out of the earth. And so we're going to place, we're calling them wallows, buffalo wallows. And you'll see on the next slide what buffalo wallows are. Some of you might already know what those are, but they're more depression like areas and in the topography. And so really the only mounting up will be right at the cove. And the highest point we'll show you here, the highest point will just be 3 foot right at the cove, and then everything will just kind of slope off of that. So buffalo wallows are found in the prairies here. As you can see in this image on the left, again, kind of buffaloes just kind of rolling around, and they were kind of low depressions of water, so they just roll around, clean themselves, and then kind of move on. And so these wallows would be left amongst the prairie, and then native grasses like prairie dropseed would live in those wallows. So we're looking at potentially using that in the wallows. So here's a view kind of looking to the west. The lake would be to the west, and the connection to the neighborhood to the west, the lake to the east, and then the wallows kind of on the west side here. Then we have the 4 coves that kind of carve into the landscape. And they'll be precast, like we said before, with a model-like appearance to make it look like soil. And then we'll have these clay bars in each cove. And so the design of each of the coves will carry a sensory theme. And we're looking at the idea of, look at my notes here, one of them being sound. So one would be associated with birds. And so in the clay bars, maybe doing imprints of kind of sound rhythms of native bird songs, or the colors of the clay bars could be evoke a color of some native birds, like maybe a meadowlark or something like that. So that would tie into this sensory theme, and again, connecting people to the place. Again, the final design will kind of work through, those colors and what that texture on the clay bars will be. Kind of see here the clay bars, and then that 3-foot tall max on that west side there. Another one will be site, which will be water. So those will that would be placed on the probably the east cove. So as you're looking towards the lake, we'll play out some colors of the lake, and expressing maybe blues and greens in the color bars with the lake view. And then another one will be smell, again, playing off of maybe the smell of the prairie dropseed, and then imprinting maybe the plant names in the clay bars to reflect that, and to gain that connection of when people are out there, they can connect with place by seeing the names of the plants maybe in the color bars there. And then the last one would be touch. So probably one of the coves we haven't decided quite yet. It would probably be maybe the east cove, because it'll be more of a cut into the hillside. That would be kind of dirt or soil, and that would be kind of a modeled clay bar texture, so people can touch that clay bar. And we may even look at maybe just leaving it perhaps not fully glazed, just exploring that, and maybe allowing like lichens to maybe even grow on the color bars too. Here's just a close up here. And then each bench or each cove will have a bench on it. And again, we're exploring 4 different potential quotes from maybe somebody like Audubon that might associate with the bird cove. So we'll explore that through final design of what that quote will be on the precast bench. So as I talked about, the prairie dropseed will be in the wallows, kind of in the depressions there. And then on the berms, we're looking at maybe a blue grama that gets maybe only 16 inches, 18 inches tall. These are just some early sketches of that inspiration of kind of cutting and extracting from the earth, telling that story. Again, there's some clay bar images. It's pretty heavy, so if you want, actually, we could pass it around if you want. But again, we'll explore as we go to final design, like kind of the texture and what that color is actually going to be like. And then we're also playing with depth. How might that protrude out? Right now, we're looking maybe at 3 inches, but again, we'll explore that in the final design if that needs to be maybe 2 inches or less. But again, allowing people to kind of touch the clay bars as there, and then an idea of how maybe the name of a bird could be imprinted into the clay bars. Again, looking at precasts, we're looking at using a form liner on that precast for the coves to give that modeled kind of soil texture. And that is the update. Any questions?
Thank you. Just a reminder, we are looking at 30% progress. So we're looking at the conceptual phase for the project. Do we have any comments or questions from council?
I've got a couple. Are the wallows and the mounds intended to be areas for people to climb into or onto, or is it kind of verboten, if you will?
They could, I mean, I'm sure people,
What's the intention?
more of as landscape of to create that kind of wallow effect and also to help define those kind of berms around the coves.
Are we concerned about drainage on the wallows?
I think it's a pretty well drained site with all the sand, so probably not too much concern there.
I'm trying, could you go back to the bars that are set into the back of the, yep. I'm looking at those and it looks like they're laying flat there. But then I'm looking at your cross section and it looks like they're projecting out. Which is
Yeah,
accurate?
They'll be set into the precast. So they'll actually be embedded into the.
So they're not laying flat against it like they're
Right.
doing here.
They'll be sticking out a little bit, yeah. So like here's the.
Yep.
Here's the wall and they'll be kind of protruding out from that.
Is there thought about leaning back on that bench into?
Yeah, and again, we'll explore that in the final design when we're really detailing the bench and how that interacts with each other too, yeah.
I guess my last thought would be that I know in our last conversation, and I appreciate the fact that you've given thought to the senses and how each of the areas might start to define itself as far as the theme goes. But still looking at that picture, I'm assuming that's an old picture where you've just got a random selection of colors that are on there.
Yep, yeah. So again, as we go into final design, we'll.
You're gonna start to give it some serious consideration.
Yes, yep. Correct.
Question. So the bars, so we've got 18-inch high bench and then the wall's another 18 inches high. So basically 38 inches high. So these bars are only this.
No, they'll be probably, the way we'll detail, they'll go back behind the bench, yeah.
But sticking out above the bench. I mean, we're only going to see 12, 18 inches of them.
Yeah, probably, yep.
Are you, so I was the one that spoke up last time about the safety issue here. Are you comfortable with the way that this is designed, that we're not going to have people being able to hide in these spaces now?
Yeah, yep. Because the highest point will be that kind of 3 foot, basically, the highest point is gonna be right at the middle of that cove and everything is gonna be just sloping off, so. Yeah, 3 foot will be the highest point and it'll only be about maybe 6 foot of section, maybe that it'll be at 3 foot before it starts to tail off.
Another 12 inches of grass on top of that.
Sure, and we might even explore maybe buffalo grass for the wallow side of the area, just to keep that height down.
On the bench, could there be at least on one side, some sort of an armrest so that would help people to get up off the bench? Maybe
Yeah.
not both sides, but at least one side. Also, the crosswalk across Hoover Road. Could we make sure that there is an audio pedestrian signal there at the crosswalk? So that someone who is visually impaired could cross easily without would have some sort of, sound there, so.
Yeah, we're good, okay.
Yeah, we haven't. I don't think I've seen plans denoting exact what the crossings are gonna look like. We will work with Public Works Department to make sure that everything is in compliance and work with them for an audio component as well.
Yeah, further comments or questions?
Question, on the last iteration, there were quotes on the benches, are those no longer in the scope?
Yeah, they'll still be in there, yep.
Can you speak to what those might be, or?
Like I said, we'll explore kind of how we'll choose some quotes that will tie into those sensory themes. Yeah. I want to give you something to comment on in the next iteration.
I mean, if it would be appropriate, we could provide, let's see, there's 4 locations, we could provide maybe 8 quotes and then have the body decide what feels maybe the most right out of those, so that
I mean, you guys have the concept, right? So really whatever makes sense for the concept that you're working on and just,
Yeah.
you know, for the next presentation, I'm sure you'll all be able to speak to how you arrived to selecting those quotes. Yeah. Great. Any further comments from council? Okay, I know that I often forget this part, so we're gonna open it up for public comment, okay? Do we have any public comment from the audience? And just a reminder, you get up to 5 minutes for comment for each agenda item, okay? So, okay, then can we entertain a motion? The recommended action is to approve the design as presented.
I'd like to make a motion to approve design as presented at 30%.
Great. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded.
No, Brent, okay, Brent, second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Great. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item. We have the Douglas Seneca to Meridian public art. We're looking at the final approval. This would be 90%. I am a part of this project. In the absence of the vice chair, I will continue to lead the agenda, but I'm gonna, of course, I'm not gonna do it. We do have some of the artists online, so just remember to speak into the mic so that everybody can hear what we're saying. Okay, Junai, go ahead.
Hey everybody, my name is Tyler Voth. I am the project manager for WSP. So I'm in charge of the engineering of the Douglas Street project. This is a very fun project for us. The main point of this project is to really increase all modes of transportation that use Douglas. This is a very important road culturally in this town. A lot of very important public events happen along Douglas. So the proposed improvements roadway wise, we're going to make it a 3-lane asphalt road with curb and gutter. The through lanes will be sharrows, so bikes will be welcome to use that area. And then in the residential section, we're going to have parallel parking lanes. So people can, residences along Douglas can park there. And then as we move east into the more commercial parts of it, still have the parking places, but kind of working more towards helping those in commercial places with their improvements and stuff. So there'll be brand new stormwater sewer throughout. Will greatly improve the drainage in this area that has some issues when it rains. And then we have our artistic design team that I'm very excited to present what we've had here. We worked very hard on this, and I will let Kent take it from there.
Thank you. Jenna, do we have somebody in the waiting room?
I let them in.
Okay.
So someone's.
What do you? Thank you.
Thanks, Tyler. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kent Williams with KWED, Kent Williams Environmental Design. And we have 2 projects with 2 artists or artist teams that will enhance the Delano district and specifically the Douglas Avenue corridor. This site shows the extensive Delano, and the yellow band highlights the project corridor. This slide shows how our project extends. On the left side of the slide, tie into the vibrant part of Douglas between the clock tower and Seneca Street that already has a strong identity. So it was important for the stakeholders of this project. They expressed they wanted to have an identity that was clear, both in keeping with the established Delano identity, but also reflecting the rich history and the present day wonder that is so many things in this neighborhood. Here are just 3 examples of the contemporary majesty of Exploration Place, the new Riverfront Stadium, Pres University, etc. So this slide is sort of inserted. This is really slightly off direct topic, but I wanted to explain the reason why we included this. Since we last met with Design Council, this has been to City Council twice, has their approval now, but they requested a special meeting for the neighborhoods because this project has two districts. This roadway is the edge between two districts. So we had two different elected groups or two different DABs and two different city council members that wanted us to give the public an opportunity to get more engaged. So we had at this meeting, the mayor and the two electeds, council persons were present and some members from the community, and it was well received. So here we see the Chisholm Trail is a big part of the Delano origin story. So this project was a regional call. We did a call through the Cafe Portal for Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Colorado, and then following the Chisholm Trail to its origin, Oklahoma and Texas. Had over 24 applicants were shortlisted, and our finalists, Armando Menares became artist number one. Artist team number two was Airworks, George and Melanie out of Boulder, Colorado. And Carissa McMullen, also on our team, was integral in surveying the existing canopy of trees, which is a huge component, a huge asset for this area, especially toward the west end of the site. And she has a planning plan that actually diversifies that existing canopy of trees. Her solutions include brick pavers and low water and low maintenance plant selections at the area of the art installations. Here you see in the residential area that wonderful canopy of trees that begins about a third of the way to the site as you travel from east to west. There's also a rail corridor crossing, and as we get to the east of that rail corridor crossing, we have mixed-use commercial. So it's a really challenging site in terms of all the different uses. Armando's site was a little bit easier to locate his works. He's created a pair of entry feature sculptures that announce your entry into this neighborhood at its western edge. So I'd like to turn it over to Armando to share his sculptural solution for the project.
All right. So in short, the inspiration for this was really the history of Delano going back to the Chisholm Trail, its origin with the indigenous communities and the plains, and then eventually becoming the main trade route for cattle, and Delano kind of being that place where a lot of these people engaging in the cattle trade would come to rest, to hang out, and to do everything else they needed to do while they were here. Very colorful history. And previously, you saw images of everything was kind of white, the structure was white. So then the next task was to go ahead and finalize a color palette and the materials that would be used for the sculptures. So what you see here, what would be considered the horn, so to speak, that would be in Horton weathering steel. There's some existing artwork in the neighborhood that uses this material, and wanting to have some sort of visual continuity with that. What could be considered feathers, the kind of angular elements, those would be the stainless steel for some high contrast materials. And the rest of the structure is sort of like half sun that you see behind the angular parts, and the Delano sign is a powder coated steel. I am passing around a little 3D model as well as some extra information that is not on the slide. The bottom of the sculpture, the pedestal, is made of concrete with and then covered in tile. The color palette would sort of match and speak to the metal structures on top. This is kind of image that I showed. The little model has the letter shown in like this kind of rectangular form and cut out. Initially, we wanted to have the letters cut out and have like a lighting element inside of it. There's been a lot of issues with accessing electricity, so we decided to pivot and do more of contrast with layer steel. That's what this image shows. The part, the kind of the darker part would be one plane, and then the lighter part would be a separate plane, and different colors like you see here, just to help with the contrast and to be able to see it both during the day and nighttime. There are some nearby light fixtures that we hope will add some extra lighting, but that's what we have to work with. Also, instead of being that rectangular form, it's a triangle. So if you can see in this kind of part that I've shown, is the side that is facing the street would be the point of the triangle, and then the back is kind of where all the stuff can get tucked in behind and hide the part there. In regards to the community engagement that Kent mentioned, we've done some already, but as I began to actually produce the tiles, we've already reached out to some potential partners to have further community engagement and helping making and glazing some of these tiles, and hopefully continue to grow the ownership of these pieces by the neighborhoods that are there. Mid-American Old Indian Museum, New Covenant Church, and Allison Magnet Middle School are some of the places that I've looked at for some of this potential community engagement. Here's the general, roughly where these are going to be located. Some of the landscape would be a little bit different, of course. And the main thing that is going away on will be your left side of the screen. On that side, there's a small tree that is there that is almost dead now. That one will be coming out as the whole area will be redone. But really, that's the only tree that will be removed in this intersection, and it's a tree that has already been pretty bad health. Other than that, like I said, the landscape around it will look different, of course, but this is just wanted to give you a general idea of the environment, what's around it, and what we're competing with in terms of infrastructure already there. And here we can see a little bit more of potentially what some of this landscape might look like. The landscaping, the landscape architect is working in identifying natives and different, and a color palette that also works with the sculpture itself. And I think that's part of my, yeah. So I'm happy to take any questions right now. Yeah.
The ceramic work on the pedestal base, does that go all the way, is that all four sides, or is that just the one?
That's correct, yeah. So the bottom part and the top part is concrete, and it's recessed so that we can have the tile and give it some protection from the elements, right? But yeah, it'll be all four sides of the pedestal.
And the wording will only be west facing, or is that
It'll
all
be
three
twice,
sides?
right? You'll see it, that's why it's a triangle, so that you can see it from both sides.
Oh, got
Yeah.
it.
So
Yeah.
as you're driving west, driving east, you're gonna see Delano both ways. Yeah. Yeah. So these are, these would be identical sculptures that are, kind of mirroring each other. Yeah.
Love it.
So bearing on that question, I was trying to figure out, are you seeing Delano as you're driving out of the district too?
Both ways. Both ways. So it's a triangle, right?
Right.
And so there'll be Delano on this side and on this side. So you'll be able to see.
Westbound, it also says Delano.
Delano, correct. Yeah.
The symbol on the bottom, tell me about that.
That is, it's a symbol that, well, it's not a symbol, it's something that was inspired by textile. In general, the bottom part of the base, it's inspired by textiles from different Wichita beadwork that they do on moccasins and textiles in general. So they're not direct copies. They're inspired by all these different patterns that I found there.
I always see symbols and I'm kind of going, what does it mean?
Yeah. No,
Why
I
did
understand.
you decide to do that?
Yeah, there, most I was looking for, as I was researching textiles that were relevant to the Plains Indians, I wanted something that visually makes sense with whatever's going on top, right? And so I kind of, that's where, as I was working different designs, that's where I arrived. Yeah, but it's not necessarily a very specific.
I love your loops of stainless steel on there. The way, I couldn't tell from that, but seeing your model, the way they kind of loop out, I think.
Wrapped around, yeah.
Nice.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the,
Structurally, is that?
yep, so there's a structural engineer that it's, looked at, and we'll continue to review this as we finalize the design, but part of it, that's where you kind of have everything being tucked in behind there. That's where the hardware and everything to hold it, whether it bolts onto that plate or if it's directly welded onto the base. That's something that we get to figure out, but the engineer gave us the go ahead. Yeah, because that was my concern, kind of, that somebody can and probably will.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we got the go ahead from the engineer. Yeah.
I think you said, but I just want to confirm, it will not be lit,
It will not be lit.
but there's enough lighting in the intersection.
Yeah, and there is, and I'm also, this is the color palette that I have right now. But we'll make sure that it's that it's not contrast so that you can see it. One of the places that I was looking at locally to kind of understand how we can make that work is at the Nomar Plaza. They have this really great big sign that says Nomar, and along the street there's a couple other ones, and they're not lit at night. I don't know if they were at some point, but they're not. But they have really great contrast that allows you to read the wording on it. And so kind of I was studying that one to see if we can do something similar in terms of contrast.
Can you remind me the height of the base itself?
The base is 5 feet tall, 5.5. 5 feet, 6 inches.
So in Delano would be like 6 feet plus.
And then from there, it's about another 14 feet on top of the 5-foot pedestal. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
I noticed on the model that it almost looks, and it could just be a 3D artifact, it almost looks like there's some texture on that kind of feather element.
That was just the printing itself.
You bet.
I'm hoping that the quartz tank can give you some of that texture. But yeah, that was just the artifact of the printing. Yeah. I was trying to send it. Yeah. Other comments? Okay, well, thank you.
Would you
Like
like
to vote on this separately from the next element?
We'll vote it all together as one item.
to open it for public comment?
Yes. Or do we wait until both projects are presented? Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to the next part of the minutes.
Thanks, Armando. Wonderful evolution. So the second art component is entitled Feather Flight. And you can see here where it exists just west of the center point. And this is, I'm sorry, just east of the center point of the project corridor. And this is just east of the rail corridor where the sky opens up and it feels very different. So this is personality in the residential area is very bungalow and very tree covered and shaded. And then once you start getting toward the center and east of the site, the trees become less dense, the sky becomes much more dominant, and there's significantly less residential. There's just a few residential properties on the east end of this site. George Peters and Melanie Barker are with Airworks Studio in Boulder. And their solutions occupy this area, 2 corners at the T-bone intersection of Douglas and Fern Street. This is just east of the rail corridor. This was a real tricky project well, all streetscape projects are tricky to locate anything that doesn't have a multitude of potential conflicts, both underground and above ground. So this site ended up being, I think, an easy choice. We considered about 10 different sites. This one rose to the top where we think it best contextualizes the works of art, and it also is at a sort of natural transition point between the more open space sky and the more residential area. And by the way, George and Melanie are on the line and are available for questions once we go through their presentation. So the feather flight concept harkens to Delano's early aviation industry in a way that also pairs with our First Nations culture and Mother Nature in general through the use of the feather. Inspired by local and regional birds' feathers, the concept of flight and movement spans the idea of Delano then and now. And we're targeting about 7 locations with 7 different feathers scaled up to a mega scale, maximum height of 22 feet. This is the sort of semi-engineered drawing that shows how these are anchored with a swivel aluminum pole that's rated for significant wind up to 150 miles an hour. The maximum height, as I said, is 22. Some will step down slightly. They're on this rotating aluminum pole that plays with the wind. So the entire thing has a rotational value. This is shifted from what you saw several months ago, where there was a pendulous and rotating piece on top of a pole with feathers that were fletching, as though the fletching on the arrows. And now the entire thing has scaled so that the entire piece is a feather. Here's the intersection and axonometric view. To give you context, beyond is the open space with Wichita LA. This shows the concept for landscape planning from Landworks Studio. And here we see it in real time. This is looking northwest, the big parking space and open sky, and one wonderful tree. We get these trees that punctuate the site here further east, whereas there this contiguous canopy on the other side. So I think this is a wonderful tree counterpart. Here we see it again with landscape shown, or suggested, I should say. And then on the diagonally opposite side of the street, we sort of complete this larger implied holding of that T-bone intersection with 4 different feathers at this location. Are there any questions? And let's see if George and Melanie are available to engage.
We're both here.
And thank you for presenting our work.
Did you hear that? Is there a volume up here?
Yeah.
We hear you, but it's as though you're inside the podium.
You look.
This is partly why Kent needed to present this, because we'd always had trouble with our audio for some reason.
Well, for the moment, George, we hear you loud and clear.
Good. Thank you.
Do you have questions from council?
So this is less about the sculpture. I love the feathers. The landscaping on these, pushing right up to the curb and the likes, and knowing what ends up happening when traffic is throwing mud, crap, and shit.
Exactly. And this slide shows that a little bit better. There is an intentional holdback of some feet It's certainly showing more on one side than the other, but yeah, I'm sure Carissa will make sure that's a part of the final. She's our landscaper.
Responsible for the ultimate upkeep of that. Once it gets planted.
I'm assuming that's a question for you, Tyler.
I have to look into that.
Yeah.
I am not quite sure.
It'd be a good idea.
We do know that we've been directed to do low water and low maintenance pallet. So it's leaning in the direction of easy maintenance.
Will come if it needs weeding occasionally.
Oh,
I'm
it
just
will.
kidding.
You and I both seen enough of these that unless there is somebody who is assigned to maintain them, they're good for about a year.
Right. So ideally, there's someone with proximity that takes ownership, as opposed to a.
That would be ideal.
Paul or Steve, would you be able to? Paul, would you be able to answer that question?
You maintained it? Is
Yeah,
that-
does it become city property or is it adjacent?
That would be within the city property, yes, and we've been engaged with our forestry.
Park Department, Forestry Division is who would be responsible for maintaining it?
Questions or comments from council?
I just had a question on the movement, just because the rotation has changed. They'll like swing like that. Is that how the feathers will move?
Imagine the pole and the feather moving. So it pivots on, it has a fixed, well, let's say the z-axis is the pole itself rotates. So
So the pole will
right.
spin.
Typically, it's not going to go like amusement park spinning. It will track with the predominant wind.
Is that like pole from base to top or just where the feather starts?
Just where the feather starts.
Just, yeah. It'll just be the upper part of the pole.
Darn, that was gonna be.
What's
I can
the
imagine having fun with that if it were the base.
what's the material that the actual surface of the feather is made from?
It's a twin layer of polycarbonate with the polychrome layer that is the feather imagery in the center or in between two layers of clear polycarb.
So is it a printed graphic inside there for the feather detail?
Yes.
What's the durability of that as far as sunlight fade?
It's done on a polycarbonate sheeting that's fairly thin for the graphic. And that'll be sandwiched between the twin wall, which will give it an effect, a ribbed effect like a feather. So it'll be at a diagonal in the shapes of the feather.
And also with the polycarbonate sheeting, the outside layer is UV protected.
So is
So
there
it's a
some
very long-lasting acrylic polymer.
Question is there a possibility for there to be air or moisture in the
a warranty or a guarantee on that? I mean, typically when something ends up being digitally printed, that's going to be outdoors, even with the UV protection, you've got about a 5 to 7 year window before it starts to look pretty feeble.
So the question is there a clock on the warranty of this? Do you basically anticipate
Whoever fabricates it, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to do some research on that.
Yeah, we've done other projects with light sensitive material sandwiched between the twin wall polycarbonate in the same kind of configuration of wind vanes. And even after 10 years, you can't tell any difference. So the UV coating is very good on the commercial grade. And we can even add other layers of a Cerakote, which is a UV protectant as well. And that would almost double the chances. So that's about 20 years before you see any kind of fading.
And we have considered using paint as well, but paint also has fading problems. Pigments change over time.
So great questions. The proof will be in the pudding, but they have, I know George and Melanie have done similar projects with successes they have mentioned.
Mm-hmm. And suffice it to say, we've done tests here at our home studio with things that have been out in the sun for ages, and including some polycarbonate pieces. And it really doesn't change at all over the years, over 5 and 7 and 10 years.
Thank you. Do we have more comments, questions from council? If not, at this point, we can open it up for public comment. Okay. Then, Kent, is there anything else that you'd like to share?
No, appreciate everyone's feedback.
Well, with that, we can entertain a motion. Remember, this is 90% design, so we're looking at final approval.
Move to approve both designs as presented at the 90% level.
Okay. Brant makes a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Yeah, Janelle seconds. All in favor say aye. Oppose? No, I abstain from vote. And okay, that passes unanimously. Great. Thank you. Thanks, Kent. All right, we're moving on along. Now we are moving to our next agenda item, and it's the re-siting of the Georgia Gerber bronzes and lotus flowers. So we have two different art projects that are going to be relocated.
Yeah, we have two different public art series that have been in storage, and we'll go through each of those separately. So we have a number of Jordan Gerber bronzes that were part of the Douglas streetscape that was done in the early 2000s. The ones that are now in storage were removed from Chester I. Lewis Park prior to the renovation that was recently done several years ago. And we are anxious to get them back out on view. So two of the pieces that we have are the Scooter Boys, large Scooter Boys, Scooter Boys. And our proposed location is near Douglas and Broadway. And along Douglas there's that very wide pedestrian pathway that I think would accommodate these two sculptures well. Just down the street is the Girl with Ponies on that same block. And either the Scooter Boys could wind through those trees or, we'll figure out the best placement. But as a general location, I think that would be appropriate. The next piece is the busker and his stool, guitar case, and terrier. And we are proposing the northeast corner of Douglas and Emporia due to the proximity to the new music industry development that's happening on Emporia. And there's a nice bump out at that corner that would provide, I think, adequate space for placement. And I've had a conversation with Todd and Graham, and they're very excited about it. So that's a plus at Planet Hair. The next item, I'm sorry for the photo, but is squirrel with nut. And this is a very small piece, but located at Douglas and Market on one of the light towers is squirrel without nut. And so we thought we could place squirrel with nut there, and they could have some company. And Squirrel Without Nut has managed to stay and not go missing. So I think it's a good location. The next work is, of course, George Gerber's soda fountain that had a very prominent placement in Chester I. Lewis Park. And we are proposing to re-site it in a Price Woodard Park Plaza, which currently there is a piece called Sundial placed on that plaza. This work, it is now missing all of the gears and metal work that was below it. So we may, I think we'll deinstall it, place it in storage, make a determination as to whether it should be deaccessioned or, what to do with it at that point. And this will be part of a larger project that's happening at A. Price Woodard Park that Tim Kellums is working on to make it more accessible, work on some of the pathways, things like that. Now, we do have in storage Girl with Balloon, and Girl with Balloon is a little trickier because she does have a water element. And so I'm going to have to do a little research and figure out how feasible it is to re-site her without a new street project that would accommodate the plumbing, et cetera, that's necessary. And then we have a number of very small works. There are some bats, a lizard, a cardinal, and a bullfrog. And we've been in conversation with Exploration Place as they're developing their new playscape. And they're putting in a sensory garden. And they already have within the sensory garden a couple of Georgia Gerber bronzes. And so, and they're very interested in having these pieces in that sensory garden because they're touchable and they fit well within the theme of this space that they're doing. This would provide, it's a public location. It's publicly accessible, but it is a little bit safer, and we have had a number of these small works go missing. So our recommendation is to place them here. And then you have the Lotus Flowers by Tina Morano, and these are a series of 8 stainless steel floating sculptures. They were originally located in Riverside Park in the pond. They were installed in the early 2000s, I think 2002. And they've been in storage for quite some time. They had received quite a bit of damage. The floating mechanisms were failing. And so we, over the past year, have had them restored. Restoration is nearing completion within the next week or two. And we, in thinking about reciting them, apparently there was quite a bit of vandalism that occurred at Riverside Park. People would try to sink them, topple them over, a number of different activities that were not beneficial to the sculptures. And so we began looking at Exploration Place Reflection Pond as a potential new location for these works. It seems fitting within that type of body of water. It would activate this area of the riverfront, and Exploration Place is in agreement and would like to have them placed there. Yeah, that's all I have.
Thanks, Jenna. Comments, questions from council? Anna?
You mentioned the one that's at A. Price Woodard Park, the sundial that's there right now. Did you say that pieces of that have gone missing?
Yeah.
So is there any concern for the one that we're relocating to that location of pieces going missing from that?
It's a solid bronze sculpture. Yeah.
The sundial had like pieces that could be taken out.
I think they were taken for scrap metal. Yeah. And I'm not even sure what year that happened. I think it's been quite some time.
I do, while we're on this site, there's some, and I mentioned it, but some greater development happening in Bryce Woodard. So it would be the soda fountain, but then also likely some infographics, some educational components that are yet to be designed or determined. But it's part of a larger scale project. That would
Maybe even just like putting a light on it. I don't know. That's what I was gonna ask. Is there lighting?
be determined.
I remember this came to council a while back with plans to renovate a park where this could go, and then that got put on hold, right? So that's what we're looking at.
It's Finley Ross, right?
Finley Ross was the original site discussed. Since that time, there's been no additional funding been raised, and the funding for that site has been reallocated to other projects as well.
Tim, do you want to kind of speak to your plans for it?
Sure, yeah. So we met with, Councilmember Johnson. He was involved with NAACP to help raise funds to renovate Finley Ross Park. I think that was a number of years ago. I think there's CIP funding available for Finley Ross Park, has not been initiated yet. There's plans to go to City Council on December 2nd to propose is to reallocate those funds to Finley or to A. Price Woodard Park. Obviously, that has not been approved yet. So kind of determined on City Council approving those reallocation of funds. I think the NAACP was a little more focused maybe on the TCAM and everything with the museum and everything. So understand why everything's funding and all that jazz didn't exactly work out. We feel that A. Price Woodard would be a great park. For those that don't know, A. Price Woodard Jr. was the first Black mayor for the city of Wichita. So there's a number of history there. We actually have an ongoing, which I guess, so we presented the bus for A. Price Woodard going to A. Price Woodard Park. That is in the works. We do have an artist that we've received some good submissions on that one. So there's quite a bit of synergy going on at A. Price Woodard Park. There was the Portland Loo that was there recently. So we are seeing a little bit more engagement, providing a little bit more amenities, upgrading of things in the park. In terms of lighting is very close to the site, if not already shining on that plaza area. So I think for us, the goal would probably be to put out an RFP to get someone on board to evaluate the site in more detail. I think that's kind of where we start getting into the nitty gritty of lighting, things like that, more accessibility within the park. If you go out there right now, it's not very accessible. There's a lot of corners and things like that. So I think in general, the idea is to help activate the park and make it more inviting in general. So that was one reason why we felt that place at A. Price Woodard Park would be a great location alternative to Finley Ross Park.
So it sounds like you're already kind of in the early stages of determining what even happens with the park. So it's a great time to kind of have these kind of bring up these kind of suggestions and concerns with lighting and accessibility now.
Yeah, now's the perfect time. Yeah, once we get funding reallocated, that's when we'll start kind of hit the ground running and whatnot. So
great, thanks for that update. Yep.
After meeting people that were involved with the Dockham sit-in, which is this gathering, this is what it's depicting in many ways, they probably would appreciate the accessibility of being able to go see this and also maybe even be invited whenever it's reinstalled.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
Maybe one or two more points of clarification. So there was an art budget for Finley Ross Park that has been reallocated already. That went into the downtown pedestal project, I believe. But then there's the park department also had a Finley Ross park development project fund that is yet to be reallocated formally, but it should go to city council in December.
Yep, December 2nd.
Two different funds, both being, one has been reallocated, one hasn't. And then one other just thing to mention that we've also been in discussion with the DeVore family, who are the original donors of all the Gerber statues. And their intent and desire was to keep as many on Douglas as possible. Hence, that's where you see majority of them. And they're also okay with all the placements that have been presented today.
thank you for that context. So do we have any further comments from council? Now then, can we entertain a motion? Cliff, do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, Brent seconds. Any discussion on the motion? No, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you for all that work and research, Jenna.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
We hope to tackle all of that in 26 year.
Great, so moving on, we have some additional items that may arise. First, we have the 2027 2% for art funding.
I'll take it. So this is really just an FYI, so everyone's aware, as we go into budget cycle for 2027, the city starts planning that budget. Ultimately, we've started internally already, but December is really when projects start being submitted. January is when the budget office starts putting everything together. But just want to make sure Design Council is aware of some documentation that's in the 2026 budget is a narrative with an intent or proposal to reduce the 2% to 1% for public art beginning in 2027. As you all know, that's an ordinance direction. So should City Council wish to make a change from 2% to 1%, it does have to change at their level. So it's not just a budgetary discretion item, but is something that's already in discussion to possibly open up that ordinance and make the change from 2% to 1%. It is a charter ordinance, so that means they would need, I believe, five of 7 votes. So it's a little bit different than some of our other ordinance changes, but wanted you all to be aware that that discussion is happening at the City Council level. I have not heard of when it would go to City Council for an ordinance change, but that is just something that has been discussed and it's written into the budget for 2026 capital improvement budget. Just has it as a note that the proposed reduction would begin in 2027 if that ordinance change happens. So a lot of things have to happen in order for that to happen, but I want to make sure Design Council is well aware that that discussion is potentially happening at City Council. If and when it does hit City Council, you all will be aware, but I encourage you to start talking with your representatives now to make sure that you all understand what it means and they all understand what it means. We will start budgeting for 2027 projects and beyond. I mean, we already do it because it's a 10-year forecast, but really February, March, and April is when we're hoping to have it refined from Design Council what that future allocation is going to look like. Right now, the budget office is advising us to proactively plan on having 2 recommendations, one if it's 2%, one if it's 1%, and we'll kind of figure it out from there. But sorry to be the sharer of that news, but want to make sure everyone's well aware before any action happens or is entertained by City Council what that could look like. Any questions or how that's going to look? Or
I guess after the election, we'll have a better idea of what council will look like, right? And then we can maybe think more about strategy and where people fall in terms of support for the ordinance.
I just don't want anyone to be surprised whenever this does go up to City Council for discussion. Would definitely love to have representatives of Design Council there to speak to what that means.
Yeah. Okay.
And it might not.
We did a budget for, was it for 26 and 27? So we just reevaluate that if it passes.
Right. And I will just be very open, and that could look like is 2027 projects are already underway, specifically the First Street Bridge. It's a very expensive project out of the budget. Let's just say that. So that plus art maintenance would really limit our ability to do projects in 2027 because of what's already been initiated. So not to say anything is impossible, but we'd really have to go back to the drawing board and what projects you've already made allocations to.
How long has the city funded at 2%?
So the ordinance was passed December of 2019. So it wasn't put into effect until, so starts in budget year 2020. So the CIP starting in 2021 is when you'd really see that starting to flow. Historically, the city's been investing in public art for 20, 30, 40 years. That 2% was just that formal allocation starting in the fiscal year 2021 budget. I believe the 2020 budget assumed that this would happen, but it wasn't required until the 2021 budget. Does that make sense? So it's still relatively new in the grand scheme of the CIP process.
Have the Woodland Park update.
I just wanted to update from last month's meeting. We had a slight pause on the funding source of it, which prevented us from issuing our RFQ for that project. It is now live and on the streets with a deadline. I believe November 14th is when the deadline to submit for the Woodland. So we sorted out the financial side of things on the back end. It is live and rolling and back on schedule.
For the Carl Brewer Community Center.
Yeah, so I wanted to give you guys a little save the date, and I'll send something out officially, but we anticipate having a grand reopening with Parks and Rec for the Carl Brewer Community Center on December 6th. Times to be determined, but as soon as those are, I'll let all of you know.
Do you have any other Mayor Rice items?
Years ago, Project Beauty created a book of many sculptures, like probably, I don't know, 530 sculptures all around Wichita. Is there a place in which all of these sculptures, because the stories behind all of them are wonderful, is there a place like online where I can direct members of our Access Advisory Group?
Sure, there is. So 2 years ago, we put the collection online. It is available at publicartarchive.org, but I will send you the link directly, Lisa, so that you can.
I'd like to share that because some of our members who are visually impaired would probably like to hear a description of it. And if they're touchable, if they can touch them, that's great. But I think it would be great for them to be able to.
All of them are touchable.
That's cool. I got in trouble at the Metropolitan Museum of Art because on the top floor where birds poop on the sculptures, and I think they are more sculptures like they have it. I touched one and I got in trouble from the security guards because you cannot touch, please do not touch the artwork. So I didn't know if our artwork was.
That's the beauty of public art. Just.
And I couldn't understand. The birds can touch it all they want, but I couldn't touch it. Thank you.
Well, Jana's done an incredible job on getting Public Art Archive up and running. We have over 300 pieces in the collection, 200 of which are on the archive, so we're constantly adding to it. We've added a ton of art in the last 2 years. I mean, just the libraries alone, we don't have all that accessioned yet and up, but we are working on it. We're getting everything professionally photographed, getting those stories told to capture. So we're well aware of what's not on there already, but Jana's working on it.
I'm glad to know that, and then I will share it with our group.
Do you have any other further comments on the Mayor Rice items? Anybody? Okay, well, with that, we can adjourn our meeting. It is not 12:14, it is 11:14.
That's a test.
Yes. Yeah, I was like, oh my God, it's already done. Yeah, okay, well, with that, meeting adjourned, and thanks, everyone. See you next time. Yeah, thank you.